Hello everyone, welcome to E-Military. We have two main news for you. Heavy clashes occurred in Ukraine's eastern region. Sporadic shelling across the line dividing Ukrainian government forces and pro-Russian separatists in the east has intensified since Thursday. Sounds of fighting were heard again on Monday, including a blast in the center of the separatist-held city of Donetsk. The cause was not known. Meanwhile, secret discussions are underway between Western allies over how to arm what they expect to be fierce Ukrainian resistance in the event of a Russian invasion that topples the Kiev government. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson laid bare the case for such a move in a dramatic speech to the Munich Security Conference, where he stated it was in the collective self-interests of the West for any Russian invasion to fail and be seen to fail. He said that any invasion would lead to a generation of bloodshed and misery as Ukrainians would fight a fierce campaign to resist Russian forces. The Observer reports that secret talks are underway between Western allies over how to arm what they expect to be fierce Ukrainian resistance in the event of a Russian invasion. It says the degree of military assistance and the extent to which it is overt is still under discussion. At the crucial gathering in Munich, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson warned of a protracted battle after any invasion that Russia could not contain. He said, "A lightning war would be followed by a long and hideous period of reprisals and revenge and insurgency, and Russian parents would mourn the loss of young Russian soldiers, who in their way are every bit as innocent as the Ukrainians now bracing themselves for the attack." If Ukraine is overrun by brute force, I fail to see how a country encompassing nearly 250,000 square miles, the biggest nation in Europe apart from Russia itself, could then be held down and subjugated forever. It came as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky demanded greater support from the West in the face of Russian aggression and the immediate imposition of tough sanctions on Russia, which leaders have vowed to impose should an invasion take place. Ukraine's military said 2 of its soldiers had been killed and 4 injured in enemy shelling on Saturday. It said there were 70 ceasefire violations as of 5 p.m. local time. Civilians living close to the front line with separatist-controlled territory experienced another day of intense shelling and bombardment. Ukraine's foreign ministry said armed Russian formations had unleashed provocative firing all across the 155-mile or 250 kilometers front line in the east of the country. There was growing suspicion that Russia was behind a series of seemingly coordinated false flag attacks designed to give President Vladimir Putin a pretext for a possible invasion. The Guardian reported that in Stanitsia Luhanska, a Ukrainian-controlled town on the outskirts of Luhansk, one of the Russia-backed separatist capitals, repeated thuds of incoming fire were audible on Saturday afternoon. Ukrainian officials in the town said there had been frequent bursts of incoming fire over the past few days. The Ukrainian military took a group of journalists into Stanitsia Luhanska by helicopter and armored vehicles on Saturday to help dispel what it said was a false Russian narrative that the Ukrainian army has been behind the recent rise in violence. Ukraine's military intelligence service said on Saturday the Kremlin was planning further destabilizing operations, which could even see civilians killed, with an attack blamed on Kiev. The Ukrainian capital was also a possible target, it indicated. The service said that leaflets circulating in the Donetsk and Luhansk rebel republics, purporting to come from the Ukrainian army, were fakes. The flyers claimed Ukraine was preparing to attack. Ukraine's pro-Western government said it was committed to dialogue and had no intention of launching an attack or carrying out acts of sabotage in the Donbas region. Meanwhile, NATO said it was moving its personnel from Kiev to the western city of Lviv. The British embassy relocated to Lviv on Saturday. Until now, public discussion has been limited to the massive economic sanctions the West will impose on the Russian economy and Putin's circle. Steps have also been taken to protect NATO's eastern flank, principally in Poland, Romania, and the Baltics. U.S. President Joe Biden has ruled out American troops being sent to Ukraine, since the U.S. has no legal obligation to help Ukraine that extends to providing military assistance. However, in his speech to the Munich Security Conference, the UK Prime Minister made it clear that the West must stand by Ukraine by ensuring Russia was ultimately repelled. If dialogue fails and if Russia chooses to use violence against an innocent and peaceful population in Ukraine, and to disregard the norms of civilized behavior between states, and to disregard the Charter of the United Nations, then we at this conference should be in no doubt that it is in our collective interest that Russia should ultimately fail and be seen to fail, Johnson said. Meanwhile, violence in Ukraine's east has escalated rapidly over the past week, where clashes between pro-Russian separatists and Ukrainian forces intensified in recent days. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Sunday called for an immediate ceasefire in the region. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky on Sunday called for an immediate ceasefire in the eastern part of the country, where clashes between pro-Russian separatists and Ukrainian forces intensified in recent days. He also said Ukraine supports peace talks within the Trilateral Contact Group, where Ukraine participates along with Russia and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE. We stand for intensifying the peace process. We support the immediate convening of the TCG and the immediate introduction of a regime of silence, Zelensky said on Twitter. Over the past 3 days, there has been an upsurge in shelling along with several parts of the front lines. The Ukrainians say shelling by the Russian-backed separatists is at its highest in nearly 3 years, and for their part, the separatists allege the use of heavy weapons by Ukrainian armed forces against civilian areas. On Thursday, a kindergarten in Ukrainian-controlled territory less than 5 kilometers from the front line was hit. On Friday and Saturday, the Ukrainian authorities reported a further spike of shelling by heavy weaponry, which is banned from within 50 kilometers of the front lines by the Minsk agreements. Ukrainian authorities say there were 60 breaches of a ceasefire on Thursday, many of them by heavy weapons. The leaders of the two breakaway pro-Russian territories, which call themselves the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics, claim the Ukrainians are planning a large military offensive in the area. On Friday, they organized mass evacuations of civilians to Russia while instructing men to remain and take up arms. Ukrainian officials repeatedly deny any such plans. On Friday, the head of Ukraine's National Security Council, Alexei Danilov, said, "There is a great danger that the representatives of the Russian Federation who are there will provoke certain things. They can do things that have nothing to do with our military." Pro-Moscow separatists have controlled the self-proclaimed Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republic since conflict broke out in the Donbas following Ukraine's 2014 Maidan Revolution, which ousted his pro-Russian president and sparked Moscow's annexation of Crimea. Russian President Vladimir Putin has regularly criticized Ukraine's alignment toward the West since then, repeatedly alleging discrimination toward Russian speakers in Ukraine and criticizing the closure of pro-Russian media outlets. Earlier this week, he claimed that Kiev was committing genocide in the Donbas. In general in Ukraine, there is a massive violation of human rights. On a legislative level, discrimination towards Russian speakers is being consolidated, Putin said Friday. The Kremlin has issued several 100,000 passports to residents in the breakaway states in recent years. The US and many European countries have alleged for months that Russia, which has moved about 150,000 troops near the Ukrainian border, is trying to create pretexts to invade. They are uncoiling and are now poised to strike, US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said Saturday during a visit to Lithuania. A day earlier, US President Joe Biden said that based on the latest American intelligence, he was now convinced that Russian President Vladimir Putin has decided to invade Ukraine and assault the capital.